If you think about it, a network is really like a neighborhood. For example, you have a neighborhood with a street running through it called Oak Street. Oak Street has 3 different houses. Each house on this street has a unique address to distinguish it from the other houses on the same street. That way, postal workers know where they can deliver mail. Take the address of the house at 732 Oak Street. Notice that the house address has 2 different parts. First, you have a house number. You also got a street name. Just like a house in a neighborhood, networks also uses a 2-part address to identify individual hosts on that network. For example, you can have a computer on a network that has the number 1 assigned to it. This is called a host address. The network it's connected to also has an address. In this case, that's 192.168.1. Just as a house in a neighborhood has a house number and the street address, a computer on a network has the host address and the network address. If you can combine the 2 together, you can uniquely identify a host on the network in the same way a house and the street address uniquely identify a particular house in a neighborhood. Suppose there is a second street in this neighborhood, and the street is called Elm Street. It intersects with Oak Street and is connected to several other houses. Just as is on Oak Street, each of these houses has its own number. You may notice that the house on Elm Street has the same number as the house on Oak Street. Suppose you have a postal worker and you have an envelope that has an address to house 732. Without a street address, you wouldn't know where it needs to go to. It works exactly the same way on a computer network. You can have 2 computers on the 2 different networks that has the same host number assigned to them. You could have a host on one network and is assigned to number 1, and a host on another network and that's assigned to number 1 as well. You can identify them uniquely from each other by looking at the network address. One host has a network address of 192.168.1. The other host has a network address of 10.0.0. In the same way, you would differentiate between the 2 houses in the same house has the same house number on different streets. You can combine the host address and the network address to uniquely identify the host on these 2 networks. 2 networks can connect to each other, forming a larger network. This network could be connected to an even larger network. If the only word you had to describe these connections were network, it could be very difficult to know which network you're talking about. Therefore, we need to introduce some new terminology. Each separate network represents a subnet. A subnet is a part of the network where all the computers share the same subnet address. This works in much the same way that all houses on the same street share the same street address. Sometimes you'll hear a subnet address refer to a network address. They're the same thing, but the best practice is to use the term subnet address.